Now, you were incredibly fortunate last week when the Melbourne Grand Prix came to town to work with Formula One star Jensen Button, and you did some training performances with him. How does his workload compare to the average Joe?
Well, I didn't know very much about Formula One, and probably still don't, but I was really surprised at his level of fitness. I'm a great admirer and great follower of rugby league, great follower of soccer internationally and here in Australia. Obviously worked in the AFL for 10 years. I'd say Jensen Button's fitness is up there in a general sense based on one session. His general fitness is up there with the best of those sports. He was able to go into an environment, in this case a swimming pool, and do running session, which is pretty taxing, alongside an AFL player and alongside an Ironman triathlete, and more than hold his own. Outstanding athlete. His level of fitness to drive that car at that speed, at that concentration level, levels of strength in that cramped, hot environment, outstanding. And obviously he needs to have great levels of fitness, but not only was he an outstanding athlete, he was an outstanding person. It was a real pleasure to be able to work with someone like Jensen Button. Hopefully he calls again next year.
So what sort of exercises did he do that nobody would know about, that a Formula One driver has to do to sustain those high speeds and G-forces?
Oh, I think the biggest focus for them, and this is from talking with them, was the emphasis on from the G-forces on their neck. It's very difficult to train neck strength, so they're working very hard on that neck strength. And in many respects, it's one of those few occasions where the only time you get the true training effect is actually driving the car and subjecting yourself to those G-forces. So they can only really lay a preparation rather than the specific needs for the G-forces. So that's a big one. And also the underlying endurance to be able to maintain his intensity throughout the duration of the race, as well as his levels of concentration and that strength level just to maintain the car at that speed. Just phenomenal.
How would their strength compare to an AFL player?
Well, it's a different type of strength. I think the strength that you're talking about with an AFL player is more about power, and you measure power by speed multiplied by strength. For someone like a Jensen Button or a Lewis Hamilton, it's more strength, an isometric strength, where the muscle doesn't change length. You know, they've got to hold the wheel in a certain position and hold that for a period of time. So that's a different sort of strength capacity or strength level that they have. He was incredibly lean. I'm not really sure what his height was, although he would have told me, and you know, I've got a memory like a sieve sometimes, but I would guess he was probably about 182 centimetres, and he weighed around 70 kilos. So very lean. You know, in terms of an AFL footballer, he's probably, you know, 10 to 14 kilos off where you'd expect an AFL player to be. And it's camouflaged beautifully in their driving suits, I noted, but when he came to do the pool session, he had nothing to hide it but his speedo, so he was pretty lean and, well, as it turned out on the weekend, pretty mean when it came to getting behind the wheel.
Exactly, because you got him a podium finish. In fact, you got him in first place.
I'd love to think that it was my influence there, but no, I don't think that had the thing. But what it did for Jensen Button and his team around him was show them a different form of training, and for him to stay fit and you know, avoid injuries like back injuries, you know, that he would get, you would expect from sitting a lot in the car and, you know, riding the bike, because he's very keen on triathlon. This is a different form of training of running in the water. That's what we mainly did. So I did one thing with the medicine ball, which I probably regretted as soon as I started doing it. You know, I threw the ball into it. It was weighed 4 kilos, and at one point it slipped through his fingers. I sort of had a flash of his career. It went past my eyes, you know. How are we going to explain to the motor racing world that I've knocked Jensen Button out and he can't race for a week because of concussion, throwing a medicine ball in the water? So I'll probably refrain from that bit of exuberance if he ever does come back. But the session itself went for an hour and a half, and he handled himself very well.